everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. It's the day after Thanksgiving. And how was everybody's holiday?
It's great.
Yeah?
Great. Food, football, some friends in town.
Yes.
One of our staff members stood us up, thought he didn't have family in town, invited him over. He decided to just go in a food or alcohol coma, but aside from that, it was great.
That's what you're supposed to do on Thanksgiving, right?
My daughter was in town.
Nice.
Able to spend time with her in from Minnesota. Watch the Vikings win.
Yep.
Your little girls, if people weren't watching yesterday, Jenna's wonderful little daughters made their debut on national television.
It was nice. I'm sure my football watching wasn't nearly as calm and quiet and focused as both of yours, but that's good.
It was a great day.
Yeah, it was nice. All right, good. I'm glad.
I don't think you were yelling at the TV. Hit him where he been.
Hit him where he been.
I didn't do this either. Bat, bat. I didn't do that either.
That's a basketball phrase.
We'll get a few
it's
of
only
those.
basketball?
Only basketball.
But I'll transition because it was Turkey Day.
It was
and we
Turkey
only
Day.
have football, so I'll give you a couple.
All right, thank you so much. Much appreciated. All right,
Let's go the other way with it.
Thanksgiving tradition continued in Dallas last night as the Cowboys hosted the Chargers. It was not a good day for Dak Prescott and company. They got blown out 28-6. Now 3 games without Zeke. 3 losses, less than 10 points in each of those games. Dak Prescott held to 179 yards and 2 picks in this one. Here he is after the game.
We're in a funk or whatever you want to call it, and it's not fun to be in. We've just got to figure out ways to get out of it. As you said, me individually and just this offense collectively. We gotta get back to work and continue to do that, and just like I said, figure out what's going on and get out of this.
CC, are we starting to wonder how good Dak Prescott actually is, judging by yesterday's game and the last 2 games before that?
Jenna, at some point, I believe that in life there's a thing called a 5-alarm fire. At that point, everyone needs to evacuate the building.
It's not good.
Take care of the women and the children. Now, earlier in the season, it was only a 1-alarm fire in Dallas. No need to panic. People put them in some must-win situation games. They really weren't. When Zeke got suspended, it was like a 3-alarm fire. It's like, man, it's critical. Get the women and babies out of the building because there's going to be severe smoke. Now seeing them play 3 games without Ezekiel Elliott. Please get everyone out the neighborhood, evacuate. It's a 5-alarm fire. All right? There will be casualties. Don't know if they will recover. Like, this was their season. They are not a good football team. They're not a good offensive football team. And when they're not a good offensive football team, Jenna, what it does is it exposes their defense. It exposes their defense for being undersized. It exposes their defensive backs for being young and inexperienced. And if you leave them out there long enough in man-to-man coverage, they're going to give up some big plays. So for me, after seeing it, yes, they've gone through some stages. But if I was a Cowboys fan, I would be seriously concerned about the Cowboys, and I would be concerned about their quarterback. Because we posed the question in last week's shows leading up to the Philadelphia game, if I had Carson Wentz, if I had Dak, which one would I take? And I told you guys, eliminate the running game, all right? Because that's a variable that you can differentiate between quarterbacks,
right,
especially in the NFL.
Yeah.
And we took away their running game in Dallas. We see who Dak is. Now, we know Carson Wentz. They got 2 running backs. They've done well running the ball, but he's a better thrower. He's a better athlete, and he has the ability to ad-lib more like Russell Wilson than you think. Like Dak, we kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. But when things break down, Dak is not at his best. He is not when the offense is off schedule. No, he's not at his best, and we've been able to see this the last 3 days. To me, as I've watched the game, Tyron Smith back at left tackle, Ezekiel Elliott is the best football player on the Dallas Cowboys team. Now, I thought so, but now I know that the numbers and I know that the video evidence that I have to be able to present to people, that they might realize that, yeah, you know something? I think he is the best football player on Dallas's team.
What do you think, Nick?
Dak said there, we're in a funk. I can think of a different F word for the Cowboys, and that is finished. Their season, as far as the playoffs, is now over. So it is no longer about, can the Cowboys pull out of this? Can the Cowboys win their last 5? No, no, no. The Cowboys is a playoff, forget Super Bowl, is a playoff contender in the NFC. That is finished. So then we do set our sights on what can we learn, and that is about Dak Prescott. And man, oh man, all of a sudden, the guy right here who was casting my make-believe MVP ballot last year for Dak Prescott, I got some questions now, because we knew the offense wouldn't be as good. But what was I felt like I said this probably for 7 straight weeks, because we kept thinking Zeke's suspended, he's not suspended. So I kept saying, I am excited to see Dak without Zeke, because I want to find out if I'm right. I'm excited. One of my favorite things about sports is we have all these arguments and debates, and some of them are unprovable, like the greatest of all time discussions, but most of them, the best thing about them is we get to find out. Yeah. Like Ohio State's Michigan's playing this weekend. Someone think Michigan will win it. Oh, guess what? By about 4 p.m. Saturday, we're going to know.
Yep.
We never got to know, really, with the Cowboys in the 90s. Was it Troy? Was it Emmett? Was it the offensive line? Was it the coaching? Was it the underrated D-line? Like, there were a lot of things there.
Yes.
And people to this day debate it. We were going to, for awful reasons, we were going to get to find out. Is it more Dak? Is it more Zeke? Man, and the results are in, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what I know. Right. If their backup quarterback was in there, Zeke wouldn't all of a sudden go from one of the best running backs in football to one of the worst. And Dak has gone from one of the best quarterbacks in football to one of the worst. I do not think he is actually one of the worst quarterbacks in football.
Right.
But if this is your basement, 3 consecutive games, he has 8 turnovers in 3 football games. He's on a list with Deshaun Kaiser, Mike Glennon, and Dak Prescott. Most turnovers of any quarterback in a 3-game stretch this year. Like, this is deeply concerning. Forget the Cowboys for this year, because they're finished. It's deeply concerning for Dak's trajectory as a pro.
Well, what's tough is that Dak started up here, right? We all saw him last year. I think this time last year they were 10-1 after 11 games. Dak Prescott was a shooting star on his way up. We all looked at Dak Prescott. We saw that Ezekiel Elliott was in that lineup. We all said Dak Prescott was the guy. This year, he's actually playing as if he was the rookie. Like, this is the kind of year where you have kind of a little bit of a beat-up offensive line. Your star running back is in for a couple games. He's not in. You put your rookie quarterback in. This is generally how he plays. And now you're starting to see a reverse of, and it's usually like this. Usually you have your rookie year first, and then you start to see the swing up. It's hard to know where he's going to go now.
Usually goes the way Carson Wentz went.
Exactly, where you have a decent first year, and now your second year with all the pieces together, and you know the offense, and you know your personnel, you start moving up. But it looked like it was a reversal for Dak Prescott. But you mentioned the word casualties, and I'm very curious. You said now you start to see casualties. Does that mean casualties on the coaching staff? Does that mean what kind of changes do you think get made after what happened yesterday?
Well, it's easy to blame the coaches. Be like, the coaches, they let's just blame them. Let's say, you know something. They don't make any adjustments. But let's blame the players, okay? Jason Witten is an old guy. Now, people can be like, oh, man, he's great, he's a nice guy. Okay, listen, my nice guy list, it's full. I need football players who can make some football plays. Dez Bryant, it's pathetic how he's playing. Bryce Butler, 1 catch, 5 yards. Like,
how about their big play? The Terrence Williams big play, CC. What did you see on
He was wide open in the middle of the field, and when you are the speed guy in the offense, like, you have to make a play, split the safeties. He was looking for a place to fall down. Yeah. They were in 2-man. The middle of the field was wide open. He caught the ball. It's the biggest play. I think it was 35 yards or so. Yeah. And he began to look for a place to fall down. Like, they don't have enough playmakers on offense and defense. Now, yeah, we started with Dak. But you have to look at this organization. There's no playmakers on defense in their linebacking core and secondary. There's no playmakers on offense. Dez Bryant, is marginal at best. Jason Witten is super slow. Terrence Williams is limited. Cole Beasley, stop. Enough.
This is where, and I'm going to give you a lot of credit today. I said in the morning meeting when you were in your office, you weren't there. I didn't want to say it in front of you, but I'll say it in front of you now on television. It is frustrating to me how right you've been about the Cowboys. Because, like, it's just, I want you to be right, but I don't want you to be, like, this right when I've been on the other side of something. But I didn't think it was possible for one guy, especially a running back, to make this type of... I watched this offense last year. Mm-hmm. This offense last year was the most balanced offense we'd seen in the league in a few years. But what you have been harping on, and we've seen it these 3 weeks, is Zeke's value is not his 130 yards rushing. That's nice. His value is these slow wide receivers are in man-to-man coverage all game.
Yes.
Your young quarterback, who we now see all of a sudden, in times of adversity, starts sailing balls, starts skipping balls. Your young quarterback has the defense the entire game. He's a secondary concern. The entire game plan is to stop the running back. And when that flips, they're like, okay, listen, you give 4 yards of carry, as they have in every game without Zeke. We're going to be okay, but we're not going to let big plays happen.
Right.
They don't have an answer.
Right.
Like, you've said it, and we've seen it now 3 weeks in a row.
Back to the Cowboys here. Another game without Zeke, another loss for Dak Prescott. That's 3 losses in a row. It's not like they're losing close ones here. Dallas hasn't even cracked double digits in any game during this skid. Cris Canty, enlighten us. How do you fix the Dallas Cowboys at this point?
Jenna, for the life of me, I can't figure out why Scott Linehan hasn't created more opportunities for Dak Prescott to use his legs, both in the run game and the pass game. Why hasn't he done some more things with the read zone, making Dak a threat to run the football, put more pressure on both edges of the defense? You saw that touchdown run that got called back because of the holding penalty. That's when Dak can be at his best, when you don't have that home run hitter and Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield. Also, in the passing game, why aren't you moving the pocket? Why aren't you getting them out on the perimeter of the defenses? Why aren't you making it simpler for Dak with half-field reads, 1 read, 2 read, and then if nobody's open, run with the football? Why haven't you done that? It's clear that he's overwhelmed right now and he's seeing too much when he drops back to pass. So make it simple on your young quarterback right now. He's not at the stage in his progression, in his development, where he can survey the entire field and make the right read. And CC, you mentioned it. With the Dallas Cowboys receivers, they're not getting a lot of separation. So again, you're putting a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott with your play calling.
Well, I think that most of America, not myself, they thought that, I mean, this is a super team. Oh, man, they got a bunch of good players. Well, let me tell you something. They got a couple good units, all right? That's what they have. They have a couple guys who can rush the passer on their defense. They got a couple young guys in their secondary that potentially can be good football players. They have a linebacking core that is above average when they have Sean Lee. When they don't have Sean Lee, they are poor, all right? They got a great offensive line. They got a great backfield because they got a young quarterback with a dynamic, maybe once every 20, 25-year type of running back. So that's who the Dallas Cowboys are. But who's the most talented and the most valuable of the Dallas Cowboys? Now, if anyone has saw these 3 games, that Ezekiel Elliott has been suspended, and they don't come to the conclusion that, wow, I might have been wrong. You know something? A great running back might be more important than a good offensive line, because Adrian Peterson carried the Vikings to above mediocrity with just himself, no offensive line. So we've seen a running back do that. Now we have a dynamic running back who happens to inherit a fabulous offensive line because the Cowboys had done a tremendous job as far as drafting people. They've done that. What else have they helped them with? Jason Witten is a liability. God bless his soul. Okay, everyone say it. Oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Right now, he's slow as can be. All right? Can't stretch the field. Is not a great end-of-the-line blocker. He's adequate. Cole Beasley, he's an okay slot receiver. That's all he is. Terrence Williams, who is he? Nobody. And Dez Bryant used to be a superstar, used to be good, and now he has gone from superstar to good to what kind of player is he? Like, he's an above average football player. So if you want to try to fix Dak, you better fix some of those other situations around him, because I believe they would improve if they had one blazer at wide receiver. And Zeke was back there. They don't have to make wholesale changes. Put Zeke when Zeke gets back from his suspension. But first in the process, you need to admit Zeke is more valuable than the quarterback and then the rest of the players they got on their offense.
It is remarkable how true that is proven to be. You couldn't have convinced me there's a team in the league outside of the one in Jacksonville where they have a star running back and a terrible quarterback, where a running back could be more important than their quarterback. Not in 2017 in the NFL, but here's what I know. If Dak was out and his backup was in, Zeke wouldn't go from Zeke to the worst running back in the NFL. And the last 3 weeks, Dak Prescott's been the worst starting quarterback. I'm not clowning Peterman and Hundley. He's been the worst starting quarterback in the NFL through his first 24 games, all of which played with Zeke. Dak had the third best passer rating in NFL history to start a career. The last 3 games, his passer rating is 57. That's, again, 10 points below the Jamarcus Russell line. Dak has shown also, and this has been a concern even in the games with Zeke this year, it's been exacerbated because without him they don't have the lead as much. Here's a concerning stat. Dak this year, with or without Zeke, when they're leading or tied, 13 touchdowns, 1 pick, a 110 rating. That's awesome. When they're trailing, 3 touchdowns, 8 picks, a 63 rating. Dak, with or without Zeke, when the defense knows you got to pass, he has had trouble throwing that football. These are all concerning signs for a guy that I looked at a month ago as a blue chip, can't miss quarterback of the future. Now you have real question marks, Chris.
No, you're absolutely right. And the thing that makes the problem worse, it compounds it, is the fact that you don't have any skill position players that can be that threat to the defense in terms of being able to dictate fronts and coverages. Now that Ezekiel Elliott is out of the lineup, who are you going to have to game plan for if you're the opposing defense? Is it Dez Bryant, a receiver that doesn't seem to be able to create separation anymore? Is it Terrence Williams? Is it Cole Beasley? Is it Alfred Morris? It's not any of those guys. And so when you don't have that home run threat in the backfield in Ezekiel Elliott, it puts a lot more pressure on your quarterback. And right now the Dallas Cowboys aren't doing enough in the way of play calling to be able to help Dak out.
When I was in Minnesota, we had some good football teams. We didn't get a great football team until we got Randy Moss. And it wasn't just his ability to make plays. Randy, especially with him and I having very different personalities. Now, I can get a team fired up. But when Randy Moss is on your team, you get off the bus with more swagger. When you're in the game, you got more swagger. It's like these guys on the bench in the NBA. You know, it's amazing when Steph and them start hitting them shots, how cool the dudes on the bench get. You know, Randy Moss had that type of effect, man. He was the engine inside of this huge thing that we were doing. But, man, if we wanted the engine to go, we have Randy say something. Randy was funny. He could say things to guys who were tight and stiff. He could say things to coaches. Now, when I watched Dallas, because I watched Dak yesterday, and I saw him trying to get the guys fired up, but to me, it looked like a lot of false enthusiasm. To me, the only time I see Dallas's offense when they are fully engaged is when Zeke has run the ball and he's eating. Because he is the drink, he is the stir that stirs the drink for the Dallas Cowboys. And that's an intangible. You don't find it at the combine. You only find it when you play hard games and you travel with guys and you realize, wow, that's another thing about a superstar that makes it very, very important. He's the guy that gets the team going. When he makes a big play, it energizes everyone on the team and gives those mediocre players even more confidence. And I see that missing from the Cowboys.
CC, you're my Randy Moss. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm Chris Carter? That's weird. No, maybe Jake Reed. He's you in
the game.
Joins us again.
Good to see you, brother.
My man.
Absolutely.
Good 15 minutes off.
Yeah,
regroup.
just kind of relax. Check you guys out.
Check his numbers.
Check his numbers.
Just in case I
gotta make sure the numbers
just
is
in
right.
case I gotta get on that corner.
All right, Kenny, let's talk some Vikings and Lions, but let's mostly talk Vikings. Case Keenum had come. Case Keenum had a lot to be thankful for yesterday, despite the calls for his benching the last couple of weeks. All Keenum does is win, apparently. 282 yards, 3 total touchdowns in this one yesterday as Minnesota improves to 9-2 with a win over the Lions. Here's Keenum after yet another win.
I don't have to explain. I'm out there playing and doing what I do, and you know, people can watch and make you know, whatever
whatever opinions they want. So right now, I'm just like I said, just recently, I'm enjoying being a Viking, and this squad is incredible.
It feels good to be a Viking when you're winning like you are. Cris, is it time to admit that Case Keenum might actually be a pretty good football quarterback?
Well, I'll say this. Bill Parcells used to always say you are what your record says you are. And this year, Case Keenum is 7-2 as the starter for the Minnesota Vikings. So you got to give him his props. The way that he played yesterday, 21-30, 282 and 3 touchdowns. That's impressive. Seeing what he did yesterday against that Detroit Lions defense. Now, they're not world beaters, but he didn't make the mistakes that cost his team the game. And that's the one thing that you can say about Case Keenum. Outside of a few weeks ago where he threw those 2 interceptions against the Washington Redskins, this season he hasn't made a lot of mistakes. 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, almost 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So he's taking care of the football, and with the supporting cast, that defense where they have playmakers on all 3 levels. CC, you've talked about it. I mean, Case Keenum is doing just enough for this Minnesota Vikings team to win. It's a playoff team. It's probably one of the top 3 teams in the NFC this year. And so when I'm looking at this Minnesota Vikings team, I'm saying Case Keenum has earned the right to start next week in Atlanta. Now, is Case Keenum going to remain the starter for the rest of the season? I don't know. And here's why I say that. I can't ignore Case Keenum's record as a starter the previous 5 seasons when he was 9-15. Okay? Teams don't let franchise quarterbacks go. Teams don't let guys go that can potentially win a Super Bowl at the quarterback position. So Case Keenum is who he is. You got to understand the complete body of work. If the Minnesota Vikings have aspirations of winning a Super Bowl over the next several seasons, then you got to figure out who that quarterback is going to be able to win it. I don't think it's Case Keenum. Teddy Bridgewater is still a question mark.
And also, teams stockpile young quarterbacks because their trade potential. Like if a guy had a great arm or a great football mind, they wouldn't let him leave the building at places where they're in search of quarterbacks, that being Houston and in L.A. In L.A., they didn't know until Sean McVay got there that Goff could be their quarterback of the future. He could have also potentially been a bust if they had hired a defensive coach or not put the right offensive coordinator around him. But go ahead, Nick.
No, I think it's a great point. You mentioned he's 7-2, so I don't really buy into the quarterback wins stat. That's not one that I'm a huge fan of. But what I am a huge fan of is what Case has done the last 3 weeks since Teddy Bridgewater put on a uniform again. Case was playing carefree football, if you could. Bradford's the starter. Bradford has, as Cris would say, the first ever career-ending bruise, so he's done. Teddy's not even eligible to play yet. So Case
they hit him so hard in his thigh, man, his neck, he had a neck injury.
So Case knew, like, okay, I can't be replaced. Like, there's nobody here to replace me. And so sometimes that's when guys play their best, but then when the pressure gets ratcheted up is when they start, What we saw with Case was the opposite. Once the pressure got ratcheted up, he's had his best 3 games of the year.
Yes.
These last 3 weeks, each week he was playing for his job. I think any of those weeks, if he'd have thrown out a 3-interception, 0-touchdown game, he gets replaced, and he's responded. I was in Houston when Case Keenum got there as an undrafted player. I watched him in training camp. I watched him when he had to take over. And I saw a guy who showed flashes. Oh, that's an exciting, fun play, but consistently was bad.
Right. And
that's not who he's been this year.
And if you thought your memory was full, we were able to see him last year in L.A. because we were in L.A. for their regular season.
Not to mention the stakes have gotten higher and higher for Case Keenum every week. You had Teddy Bridgewater come back. Then the Vikings kept winning, so they get deeper and deeper into the season. And then you take this guy and you put him on a national stage on Thanksgiving with the world watching, knowing full well that maybe there's a short leash on him, that something happens and he's getting pulled. And for him to respond the way he has, I think it says a lot about what he's learned, how far he's come, and how he's handling the pressure.
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to knock Case Keenum in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you listen to the commentary from his teammates. Sure. They're talking about how amazing he is. Kyle Rudolph said, listen, the way that he extends plays, being able to make the simple plays, to extend drives, that's important. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, their 4th and 3rd down percentage converting at 45%, and they're 5th in time of possession. That has a lot to do with their formula for success. Yeah. But in looking at Case Keenum, I'm trying to evaluate, is this guy capable of winning you a Super Bowl? And I understand that this Minnesota Vikings defense is good, and that's what you're really relying on. But are they 2000 Baltimore Ravens good when the Ravens won with Trent Dilfer as their starter? I don't know. I don't think they are because they don't take the ball away enough. So if I'm looking at Case Keenum and a quarterback that's in a situation where he might be forced to make plays to win the game, like late in the season and in the postseason, as opposed to being just a game manager, I don't know that Case Keenum is that guy.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Case shouldn't look much further than the Atlanta game.
Yep.
Like, he should take it series by series, snap by snap, because it will not make sense for a guy who does not have a lot of success to try to be projecting what he's going to do in the future. And you guys think this conversation will not change as we proceed through the playoffs and go through the playoffs. Why? Sam Bradford can come off the IR for the playoffs. So now they got 3 options at quarterback. All right? Do they bring Sam Bradford off the IR? Do they inactivate one of these other quarterbacks if Teddy is not already in the lineup? So watch what's going on in Minnesota, because even Case, he better continue to compile his resume, because both of the other quarterbacks, that being Sam Bradford and Teddy Bridgewater, have better resumes than him, and the team believes that they can win now with all 3 of them compared to with just one of them.
Jenna, here's the thing, because you have been a proponent of Cases for as simple as, initially it was, they're winning, why change it? Since you've started saying, you know, they're winning, why change it, he's added the wrinkle of, they're winning, I'm playing great, why change it? Which has bolstered your side of the argument. I want to point out where the Vikings were in their schedule and where they are now. This whole thing started after the bye. They had a brutal 5-game stretch.
Yes.
At Washington, home for the Rams, at Detroit. Does it get easier? Oh, no. You're then at Atlanta, at Carolina. He has aced his first 3 exams. Unfortunately for him, I think he's still playing by the rules of you fail one of them and you fail the class. So he's been 3-0 when I thought he had no shot at being 3-0. He'd never had 3 good games in a row in his career. And he's done it. So he could continue to disprove the odds, defy the odds. And he's got a tough test in Atlanta and then an enormous game against Carolina. If he aces those 5, then he's your guy the rest of the year no matter what, to me.
And for full disclosure, Jenna Wolfe is going to be a fan of the underdog, the people they don't count on, those they don't want to give a chance to.
It's adorable, isn't it?
Those are the people that she's going to be cheering for.
You want someone
Jenna,
like that in your group.
You see that?
Then you can use Jenna, because I feel like you're being insightful. It's good. I like it. Say it again. It is Ohio State. It is Michigan. It is tomorrow on Fox. And this one is as big as ever as OSU tries to keep their playoff hopes alive at the Big House. And CC, if anybody knows anything about this game, it is you. So my question is, someone who has played through it, followed it, lived it, loved it, breathed it, what makes this rivalry so special? Why has this become such a big thing?
Well, for one, I think that both the universities have had an ascension into college football, into the top of college football, not like 2 other institutions. So if you look at, not only is this the 114th meeting of the Ohio State and the school up north, but it's also, if you look at of the top 5 winningest programs ever. So not only is it intense, but the level of excellence that both universities have performed, it's special. And we grow up in Ohio with this being part of our culture. Like, we hate Michigan, all right? The players hate each other. The coaches hate each other, and the fans hate each other. There are things that you are allowed to do in this game, and it was really brought to my attention my first time I played against Michigan. When I showed up on Monday for film study, the whole locker room had changed. They had decorated it with Michigan. The scout team had all Michigan uniforms, and their helmets were all Michigan. I was like, my goodness. Like, so for 5 days, we practiced against a team that looked exactly like Michigan. But we watched a film, and it was of Woody Hayes and showing all the great plays that have happened in this series. And then they had a vignette of Woody Hayes in a short segment. A kid made a mistake blocking someone, and Woody Hayes went up and grabbed him by his face mask and said, "By God, son, if you lose the Michigan game, I'll kick you off the squad." And just a hush went over the room to the seriousness of this rivalry and how seriously we take it. There is a clock in Ohio State's facility, practice facility, that has a countdown to the Michigan game, the next Michigan game. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So other people might not take the rivalry seriously, but we take it serious every day. We know the team that we want to beat. We could lose them all, but if we could beat Michigan, and they feel the exact same way. So those are some of the things from an Ohio perspective that make the rivalry so special.
And Cece, and that's why I give you a hard time about this rivalry, but that's why you deep down, you do want Michigan to be good. Like, you don't want Michigan to be you don't want the Brady Hoke era. Like, you want this, and even the game still mattered, but you want this to be, I remember, I want to say it was 2006, when it was 1 versus 2.
Yes.
And a few days before the game, Bo Schembechler died. And it was, I mean, that was the last time this game, you were like, man, this could be a rematch in the national championship potentially. But really, since these two programs got the two current head coaches, is when the rivalry, to me, got another shot in the arm, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so when you look at this game in particular, it's why even when Michigan's unranked and Ohio State's one of the best teams in the country, you have a 41-42 game. That is a 2-point conversion at the end. It's why that there is no scenario where these two teams don't get up for each other. But in a game like what we're going to have this weekend, where at least on one side of the ball, defensively, Michigan can match up with anyone in the country.
Yes.
It's why, as a gambler, the 12-point spread strikes me as that's a lot of points for, as good as Ohio State is, for
a rivalry game with that type of defense.
Absolutely right. And so my only question to you on this is, for the Ohio State guys, is it any part of a negative that they are that for them it's all this emotion of the rivalry, but then also, oh yeah, playoff hope's on the line. Like, can you be too keyed up for a game like this? Can you be too anxious for a game like this as a 19 to 22-year-old?
I don't think, not the way we approach it. I mean, if you look at the games we've played some big games. That's why we play teams like Oklahoma. But also you have to realize this is a team that's been in the college playoff 2 out of the last 3 years. Like, so, yes, we've played in a lot of big games. They appropriate, the hype is real. Like, so, no, I don't believe that from an Ohio State perspective, because we understand what's at stake. And nothing is bigger. Forget the Big Ten championship. That's not bigger than beating Michigan. All right? Like, Jim Harbaugh went to Michigan, played quarterback for Michigan. All right? He's a Michigan man. Urban Meyer, he's born and raised in Ohio. His first coaching job was at Ohio State. So these are things that supersede. So I think the kids, and they've played in enough of these games that they understand what's at stake, and they will have the right energy level to be able to play in it. Also, if you have been fortunate enough to play in and to be recruited by either one of these schools, this is what you come there for. Like, this is what you come there. You come there to play teams like Michigan with all these things on the line, and that's what I'm looking forward to tomorrow at noon.
Speaking of Harbaugh, if he does lose to Ohio State, it would be his 3rd loss since he's been there, and we just talked about yesterday getting a lifetime contract. What do you think of this game? Who do you think's coming out of this game? I know what you think the playoff implications are and who needs to win.
I mean, this is Michigan salvages their season with a win. It's been a disappointing year. Started with the top 10 ranking. Right now, it's looking like it's going to end with an unranked year. They can salvage it with a win. They're at home. Their seniors have never played in a Big Ten championship game, obviously never played in college football playoff. Their seniors have dealt with a coaching change. But if they win this game, it'll feel like a successful career. So I got Michigan, unfortunately, for my man on his birthday.
No, it's not unfortunate you would predict a loser. I mean, you've been doing it. You've been doing 55 shows. I mean, I expect you, I expect you to probably do some stuff like that. You think Harbaugh's one of the top 2 coaches in
top
college?
3.
Giants are going to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, well, let me tell you what 3 has in common for Harbaugh, all right? Since he's been in the Big Ten, he has not finished better than 3rd in his division. Okay?
Okay.
Just one little fast fact.
Appreciate that.
Soap opera starring Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook continues. After losing to the Thunder, Kevin Durant said, quote, "It's not about me and Russ," which is weird because the entire game seemed like it was about him and Russ. But now the soap opera has a brand new cast member, Kevin Durant's mom. She says the whole OKC thing is, quote, "too hyped," and added, quote, "I just don't get it." All right. Nick, break it down. What in the world, honestly, at this point, is going on with Kevin Durant?
All right, so I've got an opinion on that. Real quick, if I may, I want to ask Chris Carter a question. Chris Carter?
Yes.
You are one of 4 boys, all great athletes, 2 professional athletes. Your oldest brother Butch and you. Once you became pros, how often your mother is giving quotes about rivalries either Butch had in the NBA or you had in the NFL? I'm just curious. How often did we see your wonderful mother quoted?
Well, we actually had a unique time because when Butch finished his NBA career, my career in the NFL, so my mom went through 23 straight years of professional sports limelight, and then my brother Butch played for Bobby Knight, so that was 4 years. On top of that, that's 27. Then I did the 3-year stint at Ohio State, so that's 30 straight years that she went through sports scrutiny. Yes.
And in that time?
0.
Okay.
You know when my mom was tough? When we were in like middle school and before we got to high school. My boys are the best boys out there. Man, my boy's gonna make a difference. And then after we start making a mark, she was like, listen, you gotta go do your thing. Mama's gonna be mama. Yes.
So listen, Ms. Durant, who seems to be an absolutely lovely woman.
She really is.
And a great mother, and as we all know, the real MVP. If I were KD, I don't know that I'd love seeing that, wait, I'm quoted in this, and as is my wonderful, adoring mother. But let's focus on the KD part of it for a moment. Man, we just played a clip with no sound where we had to blur your mouth because you went nose to nose with Russell Westbrook and said, you're a wuss. But you didn't say wuss. And then you have the audacity to come out after the game and say, you media folks are making this into something that's not. You didn't go nose to nose with Paul George.
You did this.
You didn't go nose to nose with Andre Roberson.
Paul George is available too.
Right. You didn't go nose to nose with Melo. Guess who puts his hand in your chest? Steven Adams. And guess what? You still eyeing Russ the entire time. Stop acting like this isn't something that means something to you. And stop. I would like to tell you to just be honest about your feelings on this. But my concern with Durant right now is I don't know if he knows. I don't know if he knows how he feels, if he made the right decision, if he made the wrong decision. Is Russ was his best friend? Did he never like him? Durant seems like a man without a country right now as far as how he actually feels about everything related to Oklahoma City. Luckily for him, he can feel one way, then another one of his Twitter accounts can feel another way, another one of his Twitter accounts can feel another way, and he can have all the bases covered.
I don't understand why it's even an option that he would think he made a mistake. He went to a new place, he won, MVP, got a championship. Like, what's left? Like, what did he leave there that he's missing so much that he can't quite get himself to a place where he's happy, comfortable, just able to go out and play basketball?
Yeah, Nick, I'll maybe ask you this. Like, we talk a lot about my previous jobs and other places. I talk about NFL, broadcasting, HBO, the other place I used to work before coming here. Do I ever seem resentful? Like, you can be honest about where I was and the decision to come here.
No. No. I mean, to be totally honest, since you said I can be honest, I think you speak of the time at HBO like almost like I would have kind of the way you talk about high school basketball. Like, you were learning, it was exciting,
Bob
it was
Costas,
new.
Oh, man, Peter King,
right,
Chris Collinsworth, Dan Marino.
Right.
Yes.
And when you talk about your job most recent to here, it was a job that you clearly made a few really good friendships with, and that you take a lot of pride in the fact that that's where you felt, to me, from an outside, that you kind of mastered your craft, that you really figured out exactly how to hit all the right gears.
But also, I chose to leave.
Right.
What sense does it make to be sitting around and complaining when you decided to go somewhere else? So you're sitting around acting like, well, OKC, they didn't trade you. It wasn't like Russ went to ownership, went to their great general manager, like, you know something? Hey, let's get rid of the cupcake guy. All right? Let's ship him on somewhere else. Russ has been trying to keep all the players. He didn't tell Harden to leave. Harden had to leave. He didn't tell KD to leave. He left on his own and didn't tell Russ.
And Cece, you meant, like, Katie says the media makes it about me and Russ. Not that. And did the media design your shoes with the cupcakes on them, which is a direct shot at Russ? Did that happen?
Right.
Did the media do that?
What did the media, did you lose Russ's phone number? From the time you said all those things about him in the MVP speech to the time that you know you're getting ready to sign with Golden State. How long would it have taken, and I believe would have changed the arc of this relationship, if you had called the man and acted like a man and said, you know something, I'm going to decide to go play in Golden State. I appreciate everything we've accomplished together. Just as simple as that. Now, we can both be upset, but there's a respect level that's going to transfer with you taking the courtesy to call me on the phone. So I don't think they'll ever have that type of respect because KD has tried to portray it as being something else that it's not.
Kyrie Irving left Cleveland, right? And we all thought there was going to be a big thing, and there was some, like, riff in the friendship between he and LeBron James. We don't know what it was. They came back. They played each other. It was okay. It was a great game. And then
at the end of the game, LeBron hugged him.
And that was it. And that's what it's supposed to be like. That's what adulthood is.
Well, there's a couple things. This thing could get better if Russ took the road LeBron took, which is the total high road. Listen, Russ has been a big part of this. No, but Russ, listen.
Yeah, Russ
has been a big part of this.
Russ will throw a log on the fire,
right,
and have it keep brewing.
But he's not the instigator. And the other, this didn't. I don't know if people noticed this. And I tried to pull the video, but it's really hard to find unless it's really best video from like a fan Twitter video. At the end of the game, Russ had 34 points, 10 rebounds. He had 9 assists. They were up by $1 billion. He was hunting for that final assist to get the triple-double. And on one play, he passes Steven Adams, and Steven Adams could have shot. Steven Adams passes as well, so Russ can't get the assist. And Russ says, Steven, shoot it. KD and Steph are on the bench, pointing, laughing, mocking. That was right before the game ended, probably 20 minutes. He's pointing, laughing, mocking for the whole world to see at Russ, right after he went nose-to-nose with him and called him what he called him. To then go to the media and say, no, it's nothing. We're just competitive. You weren't pointing, laughing at anyone else on the team. You weren't doing any of that. So just own it, man. Just own it. And he couldn't own the decision, which is why he never called Russ.
Right.
He never dealt with that. Man, as adults, sometimes you got to have uncomfortable conversation.
And it's okay that we don't like each other. Everyone's not going to be friends. It's not. That is the real world. Like, and that, both of them, I believe, can live with.
But you still have to coexist. And they have to coexist in the NBA to the point where every time they play, it's not some ridiculous, asinine, stupid little something or other that we're talking about.
I believe a little chippiness is good for sports, Jenna.
Remember this.
I believe it, yes.
This year we get captains at the All-Star.
This is not the nursery school.
Well, right now, my only frame of reference is the nursery school. So.
Jenna, but we get captains at the All-Star game this year. Please let it be LeBron and Russ and have the final two guys like, I'm not picking KD, I'm not picking Kyrie. Well, I'm not picking KD, I'm not picking Kyrie. Those two last guys standing. I'm rooting. Please let it be that.
Right. Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.